blurb on what 1 Million Cups is. Most of you have heard this before, but if you're new and if you've never been to a 1 Million Cups before, we have one presenter. That presenter is going to be giving us an overview of their business, where they're at right now, and then 3 specific challenges that they're running into, 3 questions that they want us to help answer. So the room will become essentially an advisory board room for about 20 minutes after the 6-minute presentation. So the goal there is really to focus on those 3 questions. I know oftentimes people will have other questions that may tie into those, but if you can remain focused on really tackling those 3 questions when we get to them, it would be really, really appreciated. And I'll help sort of guide that if it gets a little bit astray. So that's what 1 Million Cups is about. We do record this live, so if you do want to look at it later on, there's a bunch of live events on our Facebook page, which is 1 Million Cups Round Rock. And we'll have that at the end, I believe. So with that said, I want to introduce Rochelle Lynn from Just Happy Hours. I'm going to turn it over to her to have her go through her presentation, and then we'll get on to the questions. Welcome, Rochelle Lynn.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am Rochelle Lynn. I am the founder of Just Happy Hours. So I'd like to talk about Just Happy Hours in terms of Meetup, which allows people to get together over shared interests, and Open Table, which allows people to make reservations with restaurants and restaurants to kind of manage those reservations. It's as if they had a baby. Just Happy Hours takes both of those things and helps people meet new people, and also helps restaurants make more money off of people that come into their restaurant in terms of incremental income, but also helps create income downstream. So we'll talk more about that as we proceed. The business model for the Just Happy Hours mobile app is that restaurants can subscribe and have what's called a gold membership. The gold membership gives them an upgraded experience within the app as far as their profile is concerned. They can they can set up their own events and notify everybody in the app that they're taking place. They get more visibility within the app, and then they also can add more photos and more information about their venue. So the problems that Just Happy Hours solves have to do with social connections and the difficulty of making those, particularly as people approach what's unpopularly called middle age, especially once you get there. And that results from lots of different things, transitions in people's lives, the fact that they have to, that they're often, they may have gone through a divorce, a separation, death of a partner. Often their kids have grown up and moved away, and they just kind of find themselves needing new social connections. So the venue side, we obviously have a ton of restaurants in Austin and Round Rock, but there's a tremendous amount of competition, even though there's a lot of people here. And so it becomes, how do I differentiate from other restaurants and other bars, get people to notice me, and get them to come not just once based off something like a coupon, but get them to come back repeatedly so that I have loyal guests. So I started a happy hour group in Florida, where I was living until last August. I was very popular, even though it was in a relatively small town. People really liked just getting away from the whole staying home and watching Netflix and eating microwave popcorn while they waited to get ready for work the next day. They responded to the fact that they were able to make social connections, and nobody got too wild and crazy or anything like that. It's just a nice social happy hour. People had 1 or 2 drinks, usually bought dinner, sat around and chatted for a while. And then we also had a really, I guess what I would call it, kind of a dicey experience with some of the venues, because when you call the manager, first of all, I was responsible for all the logistics, which was sometimes difficult. But when I would call, sometimes I would talk to one manager, even a few hours earlier in the day, but when I got there, somebody else would be at the desk, or the person at the desk just hadn't been notified, so they would still be struggling to move tables together and things like that. And I was like, there's got to be a way to give that restaurant the notification so they can plan for as far as staffing is concerned and just the logistics of it. So I've looked at a lot of different market factors, done some market research as part of owning this business, and you know, our population is definitely aging. There's actually going to be fewer people in around 2020, 2022 who are of age where they're coming into that quote-unquote drinking or partying stage. So even though alcohol sales are expected to grow on premise, just meaning that they're, you know, purchased outside of the home in a restaurant or in a bar, they're expected to grow because of the aging population. So that helps match us up to, you know, to our actual target market of where we feel people will find this useful and kind of an enhancement to their lives. But it also helps restaurants because they're going to get a lot more. They're going to gain some customers that are known for having higher incomes typically, and also having more loyalty. So I'm going to move on to our customers. So our customers are called creators. Those are the end users, the guests in the restaurants, and there's some demographics about them. And then venues, we're looking for people that are either are kind of disenchanted with an open table type system or just can't afford to use it. It does tend to be pretty expensive, especially for a restaurant, which is most of them, that are operating on a super thin margin. So, and we do have some competitive advantages I'll go through in a moment. So these are screenshots. We have the Android version out. The iOS is in development. We're doing some market research and actually have our first happy hour set up for towards the end of the month. So this kind of goes to the revenue model. Which I talked about, the gold membership, and it is free for all creators or end users. Anybody can create a happy hour at any time, and they are not charged anything, although they may see in-app ads. So we do have an advisory board that we've been working with, and but right now I'm the sole founder, and then we also have a set of contractors that we use because this is as of right now, is a bootstrapped business. So one thing I wanted to make sure I talked about is the fact that we have a happy hour coming up at the end of the month. It is 4/23 at Prohibition Creamery, where we're basically going to be doing a lot of beta testing of the app. We'll incentivize people to register, you know, RSVP through the app, and we're also working with the restaurant to get feedback from them. Questions?
I'll go ahead and read the three questions, and then she did go through some slides pretty quick, so you guys may want to pop back, so just let me know. So first question is, as a restaurant owner, what else would you like to see in the gold membership plan? We'll pop back to that. As an end user, what functionalities would you like to see in the app? And then as a potential investor, what questions would you like to have answered? So I think we might get a few good tips on that side of it. So does anybody want to kick things off? Does anybody want to look at another slide?
I just want to ask if you have mapping on there for the restaurant.
Yes, yeah. So in the restaurant profile, even the standard, which is free for all restaurants, so that we can kind of build that relationship and let them see how the app works. They can, they'll of course type in their name, address, phone number, and then on the user side, the creator side, when they go in, it'll give them directions to it just from clicking and opening an app like you typically would. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Michelle. Pleased to see you again.
Thank you.
I mentored a team at Food Plus City competition.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we were doing was looking at some of the special food needs, and I was wondering if you were going to include somewhere in your information those restaurants or venues that actually do cater to people not only with celiac but other
Sure.
kinds of things, because that turns out to be a very big issue, and I encourage you to do that.
Yes, that's a great feedback. I actually have a friend coming at the end of the month who's very allergic to milk and milk products are found almost everywhere, and I've been researching restaurants for her. So I do think that's important. So right now, the restaurant manages their own profile. We may at some point allow users to kind of assist with that and create user-generated content around the restaurant. That may or may not be through reviews. It may allow them to kind of go in and claim a listing that hasn't been claimed by a restaurant and say, hey, we love to go here because it fits our dietary needs and here's what they are. The other way to do that is to, again, because the restaurants, any restaurant can have a listing in there that's free. The reason for doing that, besides building that relationship, is to give those creators a choice. So they can go in and look for a restaurant that again, that meets those needs, set up the happy hour, people in their zip code get notified. When they set up the happy hour, they can custom name it. So if they want to name it for something that where they would be, hey, or add comments in there that say, hey, the reason I set it up here is because they meet this dietary need, then that works. So right now there's no additional functionality for that, but it would be great to integrate at some point little icons and restaurant profiles and things like that.
Can you encourage the restaurants, if they manage the profile, but can you give them a space to put that?
Well, they already have space because they can, they basically have a free form in the, go back to that screenshot of the venue side. Thank you. It's not captured. It would be in that middle one.
This one or?
No,
Okay.
yeah,
In the
there you
middle,
go.
right?
Yeah. In the middle, you see that it says list happy, well, you probably can't see it from back there, but it says list happy hour drink and food specials, and it just says half off. That's actually a long free-form field where they can put in, hey, this is what we have, and this is what people like about us, and this is what we're promoting. And that could definitely include that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have on number 3 for the investor side, I have probably a complicated question, but I think one of the most difficult things with creating an app like this, and we've seen it took Meetup probably, 20 years to get bought out by WeWork, is customer acquisition. Not on the restaurant side, but getting individuals to download and use the app. Have you built out what your customer acquisition costs will be on that side of it? And then how will you get everybody in this room to download the app and start using it so the restaurant would want to pay you that $6.99 a month gold membership premium?
Sure. So we're still in the process of researching our customer acquisition. That is why I set up the happy hour. It's like, let me get back to basics, get out there and talk to some people, have them look through the app. They're eating ice cream flavored with alcohol. They'll probably be in a good enough mood to give me some feedback. We can incentivize them a little bit, and kind of go through that process on a kind of localized basis. There's a lot of different methodologies like social media advertising, things like that, to encourage those in-app purchases.
Yep.
And we're moving slower than I think some people would move in terms of just throwing their minimum viable product out to the market and seeing what happens. But I don't want to put it in a store and get a bunch of negative reviews. I want it to be functioning and working and usable. As far as everybody in this room, probably everybody in this room is never going to download the app. It is a niche, it is a niche product in terms of it's allowing you to create a happy hour event or RSVP to one where you're going to be meeting new people. And what I found in my market research in Florida, where I was running an actual group, is that is a certain type of personality in a certain stage of life. So not everybody is a candidate for that. But people who might say, there's no way I would have done this 10 years ago, can be motivated by needing that sense of community in their lives to try something that before would have been frightening. So we're being very careful about how we target that customer and working on a marketing strategy that really speaks to that persona, if that makes sense.
Go back to the questions, just so they're up. Okay.
I was just wondering, what sort of things would I see, like I download the app and then I'm invited to a happy hour. What do I see for what the other people who are coming? Do I see like there's 2 people signed up, or do I see it's 2 women? What kind of demographics am I going to see to know that I want to attend that event, and it's not going to be people that are 40 years older than me, or
Yeah. So that one way you probably would be able to tell is by the again, by the name of the happy hour, because if they've called it something like Ladies Night, or then that would kind of cue you. Right now, the only thing that people see is the person's photo. you know, that there's this many people who are RSVP'd and this is their profile photo. And I've deliberately kept away from that as much as possible. We'll integrate what we have to in terms of online communications and that kind of background knowledge, but one of my quarrels with Meetup is the messaging feature, because I spent a lot of time cleaning out my group in terms of people who were sending inappropriate messages, who hadn't even, some of them who hadn't even attended a Meetup. They would just kind of go around to all of the people they found interesting in the group and message them, and I don't want that happening. This is about meeting people for real, you know, and there's an element of, there might be an element of concern of that in terms of, hey, these people will be a lot older than me, or a lot younger, or different in some way, but I've found, again, that people that tend to gravitate towards this sort of thing are pretty open about, you know, I never minded if I was one of the younger people in the group, because Florida, of course, skews a little older than Austin. You know, and so it really depends, I think, on your openness, but you always have the opportunity, because everybody's a creator, you always have the opportunity to be like, I'm not feeling it, I'm gonna go create my own, and I'm gonna say ladies over 50, or whatever it is that you wanna say, that kind of attracts those people to it.
Does anybody have, oh, wait, go ahead, Jeff, sorry.
Yeah, opposite side of the coin, how are you getting the message out to the restaurants?
Yeah, so we've been running social media for quite a while. I ran a Kickstarter campaign at the very beginning of this process, and then realized I didn't have enough of an audience to do that. So I started with social, email newsletters, things like that. We've run some social ads that have gotten some restaurants to sign up for the standard profile, which is what we want, is so that we can kind of, you know, then approach them and start talking to them about the app before we even try to sell them anything. We also have, we just finished an ebook. It's called Social Media for Restaurants. It's a very nice downloadable ebook, you know, and gives lots of really helpful hints. It's not how to start your social, it's how to get this to provide you with some return on your investment. And we're going to run ads for that, and in exchange for people's email addresses or signing up for the standard profile, they'll receive that ebook. And then the other way is I've basically just posted in all my Austin Startup Facebook groups. That's how I found Prohibition Creamery. I said, hey, I'm looking for somebody that either knows somebody or is somebody that wants to run this happy hour and help me test this app. And they wrote back right away and were like, yeah. And since then, I've been in touch with several other breweries here and on the outskirts of the Austin and Round Rock area, and then also Alamo Draft House. So that's part's going well.
So on the gold membership pricing, you mentioned what other features, obviously, I don't think there's any restaurant, maybe there are restaurant owners in here, but probably not. It's $6.99 per quarter, and they get the 3 things right now, right? Expanded profile, top placement, and ability to set up and market events.
Yes.
You're asking what other things would be included in a gold membership. Have you toyed around with some ideas just to get our brains flowing on that?
Sure. So one of the big ones that came up for me is I had talked to a company that that's also a startup, but is worldwide at this point. Is they go in and they take menu photos for restaurants for them to use on their website, social media, so that people aren't just kind of doing that with their iPhones. And I've thought of adding that as an enhancement, especially as we're pre-launch, and also as we get towards, as we move towards kind of developing some different levels. The reason I started off with gold is so I could have a silver and a platinum at some point. And so, you know, maybe that would start off as a hey, try us out type of incentive, but then maybe it would move to being just a premium product, or maybe we just add more photography. So that's definitely one that I've looked at. And also having somebody come out and shoot an actual happy hour so they can, again, use that in their social, and so that people at the happy hour will use that on their social, because that's where they're gonna get a lot of visibility and a lot of credibility. So it's about working the app into their overall marketing plan.
Sure. Okay.
Bill,
Oh.
I got a question back here.
Yes.
As far as question number 1, I was a restaurant owner. I saw what you said. I just noticed you said you have email registration or registration for added to the email list. So that was going to be one of my suggestions when I saw that.
Okay.
Other possibility would be if gold or premium members are able to do in-app messaging, because it's very easy for people to unsubscribe from me. Well, it has to be easy for people to unsubscribe from me unless they want to. And also some just get signal noise ratio in somebody's inbox can be needing stuff just doesn't get seen. Another option would be if you can figure out a way to do location-based push notifications. Because if I'm in an area that I either don't know really well or haven't been to before, but if a premium or a gold member is able to send me a notification that says, hey, as a user of this app, come in for lunch and save 10%, but there's one time coupon expires tomorrow, then it's easy to sway me to try something new.
Sure.
Give me 10% off to stop in.
Yeah, those are great ideas, thank you. And I'm recording this just so I don't have a steel trap memory, it might appear it's all in there.
Yes, sir.
You know, financially speaking, when you see yourself making emails,
That's a great startup question. So I took 2019 to be a time when I really kind of pivoted from being something that I started off doing as a fun, creative project to being a business. And so that's when we started thinking a lot more about the financial aspect of things. Breaking even, I have to get the iOS out. I've got to get restaurants to a place where they feel really comfortable purchasing those memberships, and we want to do that on a subscription basis with like a 1-year commitment versus having them, having revenue where they, our revenue where they sign up and then they disappear after a couple of months. So it's still up in the air. I have somebody working on some financial projections, and we're kind of toying around with, what our expectations should be in terms of how many venues will sign up in a month, things like that. But it's definitely still a work in progress.
I've got the investment slide up. So is it still true that you're still seeking an investment of $35,000?
Yeah, that's kind of where one of my advisors that was listed, I know that slide went by fast, is from People Fund. They've been great to work with. If you want to go get some mentoring of any kind, I highly recommend them. And that's kind of where we landed in terms of, how can I get the iOS completed? Because everything's slowed based on the amount of investment that I can put in from my day job. So it's, what can we do what can we ask for that would actually get the app out to market and get enough marketing done, basically, and a sales process underway that we know that we could start working towards that break-even point.
So do you request, when a restaurant signs up with you, are you asking them to send, if they have an email list, send that they are now a member of your app out to their email list?
No, we have not done that yet,
Okay.
but that's a good idea.
I think that might be, because I'm going back again to my point on the customer acquisition cost, and it's not necessarily the restaurants, because I think restaurants would be willing to try anything to get additional revenue in. It's the end users, it really is. I think that's going to be your biggest uphill battle, is getting the mass amount of people to use the product. And I recently worked with a company that sold an app to a client of ours in Round Rock called Wagabag, and they ended up staying with them for like 2 months, but no one ended up using the app. And they
Right.
sold it. So that would be that would keep me up at night if I was in your position. Right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. User acquisition is, that's a critical. I've been in digital for a long time. That is a critical metric for any, I think for any new app. And so there is going to, some of those marketing dollars are going to have to go towards incentivizing, and that's kind of what I want to get it out there and see. That's part of what I'm testing, is what does it take to get somebody to download it, show up at a happy hour, and, give some feedback, and then even if it's 2 minutes, and pick up some kind of merch or gift and take off. So yeah, we're definitely very cognizant of user acquisition. Thank you.
So kind of along that, for question number 2, as an end user, it would probably have to be negotiated with the venue, but what about doing an exclusive extra happy hour for just happy hours members. So if Alcove has margaritas $1 off, if you're a just happy hours member or in that meetup, then you get $2 off.
Okay.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, you negotiate with the venue if they want us to do that.
Yeah.
But for me, using the app, if I'm meeting up with people who have the same interests as me and I get an extra $1 off or something like that, then maybe another thing that may make me sign up and actually go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think those are great ideas. What we're really trying to kind of settle on is how we can incentivize users without asking the venue for too much or cannibalizing their margins, and that's kind of a delicate thing because, as I mentioned, their margins are super thin. So, you know, when somebody that I was talking to about this this industry the other day, we were kind of half joking about how if you see a restaurant on Groupon, a lot of times it's a really bad sign because it means they're willing to undercut their ring in order to just get butts and seats, basically. And what we don't want to do is put them in that position. We want it to be, hey, you're getting new customers. You know, these are people that don't come out much, you know, or haven't come out much, and now we're getting them out of the house. So you're getting net new customers, and those people, once they feel comfortable at your establishment, they're going to come back and they're going to bring the friends that they make and the family that visits, and they're going to, you know, they're going to be providing you some loyalty. And we're trying to make sure that we don't, you know, once they win a customer, they've won the customer. They don't have to pay over and over for that person to make a reservation on another app and show up to the restaurant. They're, you know, they've proved their value to that customer. We want to let them have that.
Michelle, does the venue get a list of or emails of the people who come?
Not at this time. They would get a notification that would say a happy hour was set up, this is what it's called, this is the date, this is the time, this is how many people have RSVP'd so far, and then 2 hours before the event starts, they would get a confirmation notification that says, these, you know, this is still set up, this is how many people have said they're coming at this point, you know, and they're also able, of course, to go in at any point and check the app notifications to see if, you know, for example, if they need to plan for.
Well, if I'm a venue,
and people
and
like
I
that.
know Meetup is one of the problems is people sign up for a lot of stuff and never show.
Yes.
And so you get your staffing. That would be a big issue for me because if I
Yeah.
staffed up and 2 people showed, I would be not happy.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I had the same issue, of course, when I ran the happy hour. I was very strict. I was like, 3 no-shows, you're out. And if a no-show is changing your RSVP within 24 hours of the event, because I've already talked to the venue, they already think we're coming, they've already planned. So you saying 2 hours ahead of time, you know, I got off late from work, is not going to work. And so we are going to have to incentivize people, but instead of using the punishment methodology I was able to use before, it's probably going to be more of a reward system based off of some type of gamification of the app, which I'm still looking at. So for example, let's say that you know, the first 10 people who arrive answer 3 questions in the app, 3 fun trivia questions about cocktails or something like that, then they get a free appetizer. So something along those lines that kind of gives the restaurant owner and manager some trust in feeling that people are going to show up for that, but also gives the people who RSVP for the event some skin in the game, kind of. Yeah, I think
One last comment, anyone? I'll give one last comment or a question. Do you have any competitors?
Yeah. So I mentioned Open Table and Meetup because those are the biggies that are out there. And you know, so there's other. What I found with competitors is that the differentiator for just happy hours is that amalgamation of the meetup sensibility of, hey, I'm going to go out and meet some new people and form some friendships and some social connections, and the RSVP /reservation /notification system. So, but there are a lot of event apps out there, as we know. The challenge there is, you know, people don't go to events when they don't have anybody to go with, and that's why that meet new people functionality really helps. And then the challenge on the more, you know, any reservation system side is to some degree the expense, although there are some new reservation systems that have popped up that are not that expensive and that actually over the time since I started the app has caused OBATable to lower some of their prices and put in a more economical tier. So that has happened, but again, you still have to have your 10 people, that are gonna come with you. And then the second part of that is just if they're using a reservation app, the restaurant is using a reservation app, they are gonna see that they are paying, because they pay per seat or per ticket, they pay a fee on top of their monthly charge. Then every time that person goes back and makes a reservation on that app, the restaurant pays for that customer again, even though they acquired them in the first place. So we're not doing that. We're not leasing customers. We're saying, hey, if they come in and they really like it and they come back and they don't use the app, we're totally fine with that.
All right. I think we got some good information on those 3 questions. And
Yeah,
hopefully
very
you got
helpful.
some really
Thank
good
you.
feedback out of
Yes.
it. Rochelle, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming today. We've got an event, obviously the